Thanks, Mike. The race is on to find a vaccine that can help bring an end to the coronavirus pandemic. Vaccine trials are currently underway, but will those vaccines be effective for teens and young adults? Fox's Teresa Priolo has more.
It's a question left out of most, if not all, stories about a race for a COVID-19 vaccine. What about the kids? Is anyone working on a vaccine that protects them? The short answer is no.
The focus has not been on children, either for drug development or vaccine development.
To date, the federal government has allocated more than $9 billion to develop and manufacture a COVID-19 vaccine. But not one drug company has publicly stated they plan to allocate any of that money for vaccine development in the 18 and under population. With schools reopening, questions over childcare, and concerns about how Americans resume life as normal, it can make you wonder, how do 22% of the U.S. population factor into this equation, even if they only account for 7% of cases nationally?
The general process by which we develop vaccines for diseases that afflict everybody is to start the vaccine testing in healthy young adults.
Dr. Rick Malley is a pediatric infectious disease specialist at Boston Children's Hospital and a founding member of Affinivax, a vaccine development company backed by the Gates Foundation. Malley says Affinivax is in the early research phase of a potential COVID vaccine. He explains how the process works. First, it's deemed safe for healthy adults, then the immunocompromised.
That's when you might consider giving it to children.
Meaning a pediatric vaccine won't be considered for many months or even years.
The problem is with children, their immune system is very different. They would need multiple trials before we could approve it for pediatrics.
And still, it's been drilled into our minds that kids can spread the virus. That's why we kept our youngest from interacting with the elderly all spring. Dr. Diane Hess is a pediatrician who looks forward to the day she can offer a vaccine to her pint-sized patients. She'd even go so far as to volunteer her own kids for a vaccine trial.
But I think if we get it under control in adults, then people will feel good about going back to work because it'll be much safer for everybody involved. And then you can have a job and have your child in school and actually thrive out of your house.
In our crime report tonight, a 21-year-old has been arrested in connection with a shooting that happened during what was supposed to be a child custody exchange in Belmead. Jaquan Davis was arrested on 2 counts of aggravated assault and 1 count of deadly conduct. Police say on the morning of September 3rd, Davis fired a gun outside a home on Lisa Drive. The child was not injured during that shooting, but police say 2 young men tried to disarm Davis, who they believe was targeting the boyfriend of the mother of the child. During the struggle, a 17-year-old was shot and the other was burned by the muzzle. None of the injuries were considered life-threatening. A former Bell County jailer is under investigation for allegedly having an improper relationship with an inmate. The Sheriff's Department says allegations surfaced recently, prompting the investigation. No word yet on the identities or genders of those involved. According to a press release, the Sheriff's Department takes these allegations seriously, adding using an outside agency to investigate will ensure complete transparency. The first ever black female to head the Dallas Police Department is stepping down. Renee Hall officially handed her letter of resignation, ending her 3-year tenure as the first woman and woman of color to lead the department's law enforcement. But her announcement is not saying why she's stepping down or creating more questions than answers. Local officials in Dallas have been publicly expressing disappointment with Hall's ability to lead the department for some time now, citing consistent disorganization throughout the department during recent protests surrounding racial injustice. Dallas's mayor says Hall will remain at the helm of the department at the police department until the end of the year.
It's Fox 44 First Sports with Matt Roberts.
Hey there, and good evening to you. Well, Neil Searcy enters his 6th season at the helm of the Killeen Kangaroos and has a familiar face on his coaching staff with him as former Harker Heights and Baylor star wide receiver Dominic Ziegler now moves into a different role as the special teams coordinator for Killeen. In the early 2000s, Ziegler led the Bears in receiving from 04 to 06 and left Baylor second in career receptions, still ranks inside the top 10. After Baylor, he spent 4 years with the San Francisco 49ers, and he brings not only his football knowledge, but also the knowledge of a Central Texas kid who lived his dream to this Kangaroo football team.
You can't put a dollar amount on how much he's worked to our program and to our kids, and the knowledge that he can bring and talk to them from being a college athlete, being a pro athlete, being a big time Power 5 college coach, and then coming to being a high school coach and the wealth of knowledge that he has to give to these kids about playing the game and about life, you can't put a dollar amount on. So he's invaluable to my staff, and I'm really glad that he's a part of our staff here at Killeen.
I'll have more from Coach Searcy on the Roos later in Fox 44 Sports. Two of Ziegler's most memorable catches came against Texas A&M in that upset of 2004 with Sean Bell and company at Floyd Casey Stadium. A&M's quarterback that night was Reggie McNeil, who ranks 4th in career passing yards at Texas A&M. But he was recently passed by current quarterback Kellen Mond, who sits within striking distance of the all-time passing record at Texas A&M, among many honors. And having 4 years worth of starts under his belt, Mond poised to break those records and then some in 2020.
He's doing outstanding. He's had an outstanding camp right now, and having a 4-year starter who knows how you think, what you want, and like I say, right now he's finishing a lot of my sentences and the things we want. And I mean, he's really, in my opinion, taken some great steps. And hopefully, I think it'll show on the field. But I mean, his leadership, just his execution, his comfort level with what we're doing and how we're doing it, and the guys around him, I think, are executing, which is really helping too. So in that regard, it's good. And then our 2 young guys, and I've been very pleased with them too. But having Kellen there has been huge, and I think he's doing a tremendous job right now.
I'll be back with more in Fox 44 Sports. Until then, Kendall, back to you.
Thanks, Matt. Coming up, why the U.S. has increasing concerns about Iran's ability to make a nuclear weapon in light of its decision to build a facility for making advanced counterfuges. And remember, you can get the forecast and news